Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Howdy doody day.
Howdy doody.
How you doing? How you dutying?
I am, I almost said I'm dutying, and I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to give you the satisfaction of that clip.
You already did.
So I'm doing better knowing that I saved myself from that embarrassment. I am persevering, It's 11:11 today as we record this podcast.
It's going to be 11:11 in 3 minutes.
I meant today, like the date.
Well, I know, but I meant time.
So true. Wow.
Aw, we're recording 11:11 on 11:11.
The magic time and the magic moment.
Yes. And today we're going to talk about non-conventional ways to tap into your magic. Okay, I feel like, everyone gives the same old list. Meditate, talk to your guides, connect with yourself. We're going to give you some no bullshit, fun ways that you're probably already exploring right now that you can tap into your magic.
We're going to give you the weird and wonderful ways.
Yeah, 4 things that I guarantee no podcast has ever told you will make you a better witch. We're here to tell you today. So if you have been disassociating all week, all month, all year, all lifetime, congratulations.
Join the club.
Congratulations. We're going to take your favorite disassociation task and turn it into a magic task. But first, Madison, what was your magic moment of the week?
My magic moment was that the Healing Hedge Witch has been open for 3 years.
Bonkers.
We celebrated this past weekend, and I just feel very hyper aware recently of most small businesses don't stay open a year.
Mm-hmm.
I think is the statistic. And so I was there all day on Saturday, just hanging out with my mom. We had snacks, we had cookies, we had balloons and fun things. We took it kind of easy this year. Our first and second anniversaries were big, blowout, huge planning, and we just gave ourselves permission for it to be easy this year, which was a magic moment in itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've reached the point where milestone birthdays will be the big ultra planning months and ahead party, but we're you know what? It just gets to be easy.
Mm-hmm.
And the store was fucking packed with people, and it's always the best being there at an event because it's always I get to see all my favorite people,
Yeah.
I met multiple listeners, which was so wild and so cool. If you came to the store during our anniversary weekend and you listen to this podcast, just know that I love you and I'm grateful to you. It was so fun and just so low pressure in the best way, where it was I just get to show up and hang out with my favorite people and celebrate this space that has always meant so much to me and to my mom and to my family, but now means so much to so many people. And to see it in person, in the flesh, especially since Spellcrafter opened, I'm not there very often because one thing, I don't know if you guys have noticed about this, about me and my family, is that we never stop. And so we are just constantly adding new things to our plate and new ventures and new things that we could do. And so I'm just a little busy sometimes. And so I don't get to go there for fun as much as I would like to. And so just to be there and soak in that energy for a little while was just the best. And I was very grateful for it. It was a day full of magic that lifted my spirits.
Love that.
Love that. Love the Healing Hedge Witch. What was your magic moment?
I have a magic moment that will harken back to your magic moment with the termites.
Oh, no.
Because, as you know,
there are few magic moments that I never want to revisit. The termites is one of them.
Yeah. Yes. Content warning. I am going to talk about bugs. Chewy bugs.
No. She's been talking to me about bugs since she moved in this new house, and I might have to find a new co-host. I can't handle it.
So I, as you know, I moved from a city. I moved from a city,
The city.
as much as you can call
The
a city in Maine.
The one singular city in the world.
It wasn't even Portland. It wasn't even the city in Maine.
You're like a Hallmark movie. Girl leaves the big city.
I moved from
Never says what the big city is.
the city-ish of Maine to the woods of Maine. And I grew up in the woods of Maine, which is like 85% of the state, if you've ever been here, by the way. So I feel good about saying that and not giving away my location.
There are trees.
There's trees.
That's the only hint you're getting.
I grew up in the woods of Maine, but I've never had dogs in the woods of Maine. And so we move into this house, and it's great because there's like this great big yard that backs up to the woods. So the dogs have really been enjoying just pooping in the woods, and I've really been enjoying not having to step in dog poop like we did in the cities because we never picked it up on our lawn because we're gross people.
Gross girl.
Gross girl. But our dogs, they had been coming in covered in ticks.
No.
Covered in ticks. And I'm not a tick girl. I don't like bugs. I don't like ticks. I was finding them all over me. The other day I was petting Herc, and he has real short fur. And I was petting him, and I thought I felt a skin tag. And I was Googling dog skin tags, and I was like moving it around with my finger. And then 12 hours later, I found the same thing on Woody, and I was like, oh my God, these are ticks. Oh.
I'm barfing. If you hear me run away from the camera or the microphone, it's because I'm barfing. Out of terror. Terror barf.
Madison will not be visiting me until the ticks have hibernated.
Yeah, everyone
Anyways.
keeps saying I need to come to Maine, and then I hear about these fucking ticks. Absolutely not.
So bad. So bad. Anyways, I have 2 magic moments related to this horrible experience of being covered in ticks.
Yeah, this is not giving magic to me.
This is the tragic moment that leads into the magic moment. The magic moment is I was writing my book, and I got to the point where I was talking about like bugs in the basement and the attic. And so I was making a list of different bugs and critters you might find in your house and what they mean spiritually. And I looked
The
up
chapter I'll be
ticks.
skipping in your book.
I looked up ticks, and ticks can mean that you are draining your vitality. You're like draining your energy. You're like at the dregs of your energy. And I was like, oh, that's absolutely how I felt at the end of that last month and into this month. And so I decided to call a company literally while we were recording last week. I looked up tick spraying, tick removal company, and I like put my email in for an estimate. They were there that day, like 3 hours later. They sprayed my yard for ticks. I'm not normally a just spray it with chemicals girly, but I was like, I can't. There are some
things that the only choice is chemicals, and that's, you know what?
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay. Anyways, I haven't found a tick since, and I also have spent the last week refilling my energetic cups. So are they connected? Who's to say? But I just thought it was interesting that the spiritual message was on point.
The real magic moment here is that your yard is tick-free, so now I'm available again to visit.
Yes, and I have scheduled them to come out every 2 months during tick season. So.
I don't know what it is. Like, so I'm from the woods in North Carolina. I'm not a stranger to a critter. My dad found a tick on me once when I was like 8.
No.
And something about it just set me off in a way that I'm like, absolutely not. I will not. Nope. No ticks. I'm so scared of Lyme disease.
Yeah. Yeah. When I found one crawling across my hairline on my forehead, I was like, no, that's enough.
No.
That is enough. I can't do this anymore. I can't. Especially since Hercules will not sleep unless he's like under the covers wrapped in my arms. And I was like,
the fear is enough. No. The possibility of a tick.
Yeah.
Like I would have to like There's even like this country song. I actually like I vomit when I think about it. No. I actually don't remember what it's called. Oh God. Hold on. But it literally says check you for ticks and it's like supposed to be a sexy thing. Okay. It's a song called Ticks by Brad Paisley.
No.
Was released in 2007. Probably around the time when I was checked for ticks successfully. And like that just came out of the recesses of my memory. I can't even, like, I remember that song being on the radio as a child, being like, change the channel.
No.
So
yeah. Anyways, my yard is tick free now. My dogs are tick free.
Thank the good Lord. And that's the last we will be talking about ticks on this podcast. Ticks are the new termites, and they're canceled.
I think ticks are worse than termites. I don't know. I've never had termites. I can't say. Grass is greener.
Yeah, frass is greener if you've ever had a termite.
What?
Frass is people who live in Florida will get that joke, and that's, you know what? I'm not even going to explain it. Termite poop is called frass, and that's how you know you have termites, because you can see it like in your windowsills and shit, and it's really gross.
Disgusting.
And you can't do anything about termites. I mean, you can, but it's like a lot. And so you just have to live with it all the time.
Nope. Anyways, let's completely switch gears.
You know what? Let's wipe our memories like the last 4 minutes never happened. I've never seen a tick in my life.
Nope. Don't know what those are. Those were outlawed.
I don't know her.
Don't know her.
Okay. I feel like we're going to start with like perhaps my most chaotic witchy recommendation that I'll ever give on this podcast. I'm just going to preface this whole episode with like, we have been going through it.
Yeah.
If you listened to last week's episode and heard the tone, like just know that that's still how we feel inside, and now we just have to like do our jobs. So we were like, I will take magic in whatever form it will come to me these days.
I just made a magic moment about ticks. I think people know. I think that disclaimer was unnecessary. I just talked about how I've been crawling with bugs over the last week and a half of my new home.
The way that was the best thing that you could think of.
That was the cream of the crop of my experience in the last week.
Was Googling the spiritual meaning of ticks.
And pulling them off my dogs with pliers because we can't find our tweezers.
I hate it here.
Anyway, so your chaotic recommendation.
My chaotic recommendation, because originally when we were talking about this episode, we were going back and forth about like finding creativity and like how that's connected to magic. And so that's kind of how we landed here. This is my not sponsored. Please sponsor me. I would do anything to join the EA Creator Network. This is my campaign for why playing The Sims is a part of a spiritual practice.
Here we go. I'm going to double down on whatever you say because I have my own feelings and thoughts on this. So go.
And I feel like if you were a child who played The Sims, you immediately understand and you will immediately agree with what I'm going to say. But for me, storytelling is very connected to magic. That's where I find my creativity and that's where I find my magic. And playing The Sims gives you free mental reign. Because like if you just play The Sims like with what's available to you, it's not as fun. Do you know what I mean? Like if you're just pushing the buttons and trying to like keep this person alive,
yeah,
and going to their job, like it's a fun game, but it's not its full potential, which I do feel like is a metaphor for life. What's fun about The Sims is what you're telling yourself in your head is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you create this person, you like give them a mental backstory. You can't give them a backstory in the game. But like if you're making an adult sim, you know where they came from, you know what their relationship with their parents are like, even if their parents aren't in the world. Like, you know their hopes and dreams. You know like what their dream job is, even if it's not like their aspiration that's chosen for the sim. If you've never played The Sims, sorry, you're gonna have to like you're going to have to buy it or skip the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But I feel like really this can be like any storytelling game. You know, I feel the same way about Stardew Valley.
I love Stardew Valley.
Love Stardew Valley. That backstory is a little bit given to you, but any game where there's like room for possibility in your own mind.
Animal Crossing.
Animal Crossing. It flips this little switch in my brain that opens me up to possibility and makes me more creative in my day-to-day life, which makes me want to expand a spiritual practice. Does that make sense? Does that connection, does that domino effect track?
I just had a memory from the recesses of my mind.
My brine.
Come to the surface, and I have to share it. And I've been over here like trying to find the evidence of it. And if I find it, I will send it to you. But I just had a memory of when I first started teaching yoga, I had a blog. And one of my blog posts was about the Sims, because I realized I was getting bored with The Sims. Just follow my logic train here.
Mm-hmm.
I was, 24, bored with The Sims, this game that I would literally skip school when a new game came out, and I would play it 72 hours straight was my record of barely sleeping in between when The Sims 2 came out. I was so excited. And I was reflecting on why I was bored of it at 24 years old. And what I realized was I was playing inside the box. Like, I was keeping my Sims alive. I was sending them to work. I was trying to go up in promotion. And then once my career was settled, I would get married. And then once they would get married, they would have the kids. And then they'd build the bigger house. And then they whatever. And it was so boring because I was just doing what I thought I quote unquote was supposed to do. And I realized that was reflected in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know how to break out of that. So what I started doing was in The Sims, just like thinking of, okay, what am I quote unquote supposed to be doing? What's the opposite of that? And just like, what's the most fun choice I can make in this moment? And I started to see that play out in The Sims. And then that gave me the confidence to play that out in my life.
We sound bonkers. But I am doubling down because I agree.
Yes.
It is, one, your natural instinct of what to do when you play The Sims is a reflection of your beliefs about your life.
Yes.
Two, deciding to do something, like to play, it introduces play to life. I think I fear that might be a tagline somewhere for them.
I fear that might be their play with life is their tagline.
That it is.
Yeah.
That's tough. I've never had an original thought.
But I was thinking about, okay, so I've been playing The Sims 3 lately because I find it just like has more play than Sims 4 personally. Sims 3 has like a supernatural pack, and you can be a fortune teller or like a mystic of some sort. I forget what the career is called. And one of the career goals is you have to do private readings for people. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting, because in order to do a private reading, you have to go up to someone and be like, perform private reading. And they either like accept it or they reject it. And even if you give a bad reading, you still get a bump in your relationship. So I was like, oh, this would be such a cool like manifestation practice for someone who's nervous giving readings. Just like play out the worst case scenario. It's like, oh, you give a bad reading. Oh, well.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like someone rejects your reading. Oh, well. Right?
I love that.
I know. It's so fun. I also think I've always said this before, but Stardew Valley is the best tool for overcoming any kind of negative pattern with money.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have a scarcity mindset playing like Animal Crossing, The Sims, Stardew Valley, here's why. So you start off with very little, right? Start off with very little. You have to hustle. You have to struggle. And you're like, how am I ever going to afford, the chicken coop and the truffle pig, right? How will I ever afford that? And then at some point in the game, you have so much money, you don't know what to do with it, right? Like you get to a point where you're like, I already have like 6 truffle pigs and 2 barns, and I literally have so much money, I don't know what to do with it. I'm just like buying beers for everyone in town and just building my relationships that way, right? And that is such a cool, like, if you tune into that feeling of like when you're playing that game, you keep going because you know one day it's going to get easier and easier and easier. Why can't we reflect that in our life?
Mm-hmm.
It's like if you're going through a hard point right now, whether it's financial or relationship or whatever, it's like, can you just sit with, okay, I know inevitably one day it's going to be easier.
Mm-hmm. Another thing that I think is so beautiful about Stardew Valley that actually really helped me in like in a strange time is that it romanticizes a very specific kind of like slow life
Yes.
that I have been very deeply uncomfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
Part of my lore is that I used to live in Missouri, and no hate to Missouri. Wonderful place. But my life felt very small, and playing Stardew Valley that is literally like about living in the tiniest place ever where
Mm-hmm.
you know absolutely everyone that lives there.
Mm-hmm.
I was able to a little bit take that mentality and apply it to where I was living. And obviously it did not end up being the place for me, but I was able to build a really like big and beautiful life in what felt like a very small ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Stardew Valley had a lot to do with it.
I love that.
Also, okay, I've never played this, but I want to. I feel like Dungeons and Dragons does this beautifully. Have we talked about this on the podcast?
Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah. There's no fucking rules.
Really?
Yeah, that's the whole point, is that the person, like the dungeon master, creates a loose storyline. Like those people are literally acting out that scene, and then you say what you're gonna do. Like there's
Why
no
have I never
options.
played this? Why have I never done this?
Because it's got a bad reputation that it's just for nerds.
I have played other RPG games. I've played others that were
Well, it's
fun.
not a computer game.
No, I know.
Oh, okay.
I know. RPGs aren't necessarily on computer, are they?
I've always associated it with the computer, but I don't fucking know.
Role-playing games, RPG.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I know.
it's just
I know.
improv.
I know. That's such a great point.
It's just improv. Improv is such a powerful way to tap into your magic. If you want to build your confidence, do some form of improv.
Oh my God. Agreed.
We've talked about this before. We have absolutely talked about this before.
We've
at
definitely
some
talked,
point.
because my partner Drew does improv
Yeah.
as like a hobby at a theater local to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I went on a show that he was doing once. They played the Newlywed Game. And so it was like him and his
Yes.
friend, and the friend's wife and I both came on. And I thought I was going to shit my pants, is the truth. But I made one good joke, and that one good joke carried me for like 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Doing improv. I feel like these games are just like improv in
Yeah.
game form. Improv for introverts.
Done. Podcast over. Fuck the rest of our ideas.
Okay, idea number 2 is reading fantasy books and or fiction books. Now, I used to be someone who I only read self-help and nonfiction books. We have talked about my book journey over the last year on the podcast ad nauseum, but I was someone who I thought, I'm a spiritual person. I'm going to read nonfiction books. I'm going to read books about mindfulness. I'm going to read books about magic. I'm going to read books about myself. I will tell you, I have read, it's November 11th right now. I just finished my 91st book this year.
You go, girl.
Only like 3 of which were nonfictions. I've learned so much about myself. But here's the thing is I have learned like how I can best describe this is my life has slowed down internally significantly since I started reading fiction. Because when I read, I can just like escape. I can just go into the pages. Don't ask me about what I'm reading. I don't have a clue. Can't tell you the name of the characters. Can't tell you the place they're in. Can't tell you how to pronounce jack shit in it. All I know is the vibes. It has helped my focus so much, especially because I've been reading a lot of like Frida McFadden, like popcorn thrillers. So the chapters are like 3 minutes long and I'm just like, yeah, like so into it. But I have found like I scroll on my phone way less. I like disassociate way less. I'm like I'm just like drinking a cup of tea and just like enjoying a book in the sunshine with my dogs. And it's just, I feel like I've learned so much about myself from not trying to learn through other people's perspectives of myself. Do you know what I mean? Like, I feel like when I'm reading nonfiction books, I'm being told what I should think about myself. But when I'm reading, like, I just read The Hunger Games, Mockingjay, just finished that last night. And I was like, oh, it's so interesting. Like, I've learned that I really identify with like certain characters in this story. And like, I can, like, it gives me the safe outlet to like feel different emotions that I maybe kind of hide from in my day-to-day life. And I don't know, it's just been such a cool like way to get me off my phone and into my experience and like slow things down internally. I feel like my concentration is better. My ability to like metabolize emotions are better. I'm having fun like by myself for the first time in like a long time. And I feel like I've learned so much about who I am through identifying with these different characters and thinking about like why I identify with them than I ever had through like nonfiction.
Yeah, I think that fiction books especially also have that layer that I was talking about with The Sims of opening your mind up to possibilities of lives that are different than your own and like recognition of patterns within yourself. So even if these books like aren't fantasy or don't have magic elements in them, I feel like the magic is the way that it really does teach your brain that there are other ways to live and there are other ways to be, and that we don't have to be in the patterns and in the lives that we've been in before. And especially, I think that's why it's so important to read about people whose experiences are different from yours and like diversifying the authors that you read.
Yeah. And it's given me this really cool way to connect with people. Like, I feel like we all need a little silly, goofy, kick your feet moment. And it's like, let's all read Lights Out. You know, that was a silly, goofy book. I can't even explain that book without laughing because it's like a masked TikTok thirst trap guy consensually stalks a girl and then they accidentally kill someone, but they fall in love. Right. Like, but the banter is on point, you know?
Sure.
So it's like, but everyone that I've talked to, whether it's in my DMs or like in my personal life, they're like, yeah. And we get so animated. Versus like we talked about last week, like making real connections with people. I feel like this has been one of the ways that I've really connected with people is like, yeah, did you read that book with the tentacle smut in it? What did you think of that? You know?
That's how I felt. Like I when I lived in Missouri, I was in this book club that was like my favorite thing ever because I left Missouri very abruptly. Didn't know that I was going to be moving back to Florida when I moved back to Florida. That's lore for another day. But I remember like my mom helping me pack up and leave and being like, but what about my book club? Like I was so excited to not be living there anymore is the truth. And the one thing that I really missed was that book club because it was exactly like that I knew that I had something to talk about with these people and we would give recommendations to one another. And like if there was a book that a lot of people had read and then they recommended it to me, it was everyone waiting on the edge of their seat for me to come into the book club group chat to say what I thought about it.
Yeah.
And that's what I really love about how ACOTAR has become so mainstream is that
A Court of Thorns and Roses for those just tuning in.
If you haven't heard of it, I'm surprised. It is like it has it's this book series that has really paved the way for like the young adult genre, which is like books or new adult genre. Sorry, not young adult.
Yeah, new adult. It's definitely not young
It's
adult.
not young adult. Sorry. It has young adult themes with
smut.
with adult vibes. But like sorry, oopsie. Now that things like merch, like book merch are so common.
Yeah.
It's like a way. I was out with my friend who was wearing like a shirt that had a book reference on it, and somebody else came into where we were wearing a different shirt with the same book reference on it. It was like, oh, now we're friends.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
It creates that level of connection with other human beings that might not share everything with you, but I know that we like this one thing that then kind of splinters off into other things that I know we have a general vibe connection.
Yeah. I was talking to my energy healer about this because I wore one of my like smutty book shirts to a session. It says, "Please don't ask me what I'm reading." And she and I had talked about like how much I love reading smut these days. And she has known me since I quit my job as an advocate. Those just tuning in, I worked with survivors of sexual violence for 9 years. Now I read smut and thrillers. And I was like, I had never thought of this before, but she said to me, this is really a reclaiming for you.
For
Like,
sure.
this is a reprogramming of those themes for you. And I was like, oh, I never thought of that, because it's true. Like, my whole adult life, when I was in that job, I started when I was 17, was all like any sort of smut was negative. Not just because of like the themes, but like because my only understanding of sexuality was through violence. And so I used to watch like Lifetime movies to try to like escape it in a weird way.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense.
Yeah, to like pretend that all of this is fiction. I don't know. But now it's like I'm actually enjoying just like the giddy little romances alongside, you know, the psychological thrillers. But yeah, really seeing it as like a reclaiming in a way. It's like rewriting that story for me.
I love that.
Love that. Next.
Transitioning from reading into writing. This is something that I have recently started doing that now I cannot recommend enough, which is if you say that you have not had this experience, you are a lying liar who lies.
Lying liar lies.
But if you've ever had a conversation and then you leave that conversation, whether it's an argument or not, thinking to yourself, oh, I wish I had said XYZ, and then you replay the conversation over and over and over again and it consumes your life, and you think of comebacks and you think of smarter things to say or whatever. I had this maybe like 6 months ago. I had this mental scenario play out and consume me. It was an argument with a distant family member who I do not get along with. And not even a conversation that had happened in the past, like a conversation that I thought might happen in the future.
Yep.
And I was planning exactly, like I was getting angry. Like I felt it in my body, like I was having this conversation with this person, and I would do it in the shower. I would do it in the car, like wrapped up in this fight. And I wrote it down. I went to my little Google Docs and I wrote it like a book.
Like a little screenplay.
Yes, exactly like that. I wrote the like third person view of this fight that I was having with this person that does not know that we're fighting. Well, she knows that we're fighting.
Wait, I love this because as soon as you mentioned this to me, I was like, oh, I have the perfect experience of this. And it's really like a make lemonade with lemons moment, because I remember it was like 2015 or 2016, like somewhere before I met my now spouse. I was on a date with a guy. It was the worst date of my entire life. He was so boring. He would not stop talking about this band that he had in college. And he was also a urologist. So I kept trying to make pee related jokes and he wasn't laughing at them. He was just going into the technical. He thought I was like genuinely interested in urology.
I love that you say jokes plural. Like you didn't learn your lesson. You made one joke. No. It didn't land. And then you said, I'll get him.
Yeah.
I'll get him next time.
I kept going. And he would not stop talking long enough for me to excuse myself. So what I started doing in the 6 hours when we got gelato. Yes. Yes. I started writing a screenplay in my head of this man interacting with a patient. And I ended up submitting it to a playwriting festival and it won. I got to see it performed. And it was the best. I was like, this was the best date of my life.
Suddenly you're thinking about going out with him again just for more material.
It changed my entire, anytime I'm in a situation that I'm like, wow, this is really excruciating and boring, I just start turning it into a screenplay.
And I will say that writing that down however many months ago has like spiraled into its own idea that I've been like slowly but surely writing of like, it started as like a true account of what I thought that this fight would look like. And then I got to dramatize it and like fictionalize it.
Yeah.
And that, in a weird way, was very healing.
It's a transmutation spell.
Yes, exactly. And so I started doing it with things that had happened in the past, dramatizing them, fictionalizing them. And then it is like, it's a transmutation of energy because it's like, I see it in a weird way the same way as how I will often go for a long walk or a run if I have too much energy in my body. It's a way to expel that energy.
Yes.
And that's how movement became very magic to me, is it became a transmutation spell.
Yeah, it's like a transmutation for your brain.
And now I don't, not only do I not have that argument in my head over and over now, but I have this new practice that really does help me process my own feelings, because oftentimes like those looping, it's never about the other person, it's about me and like what I perceive as my inadequacy in a conversation or in an argument or in a debate or whatever it is. Yeah. I've found this a lot since the election, like having this mental argument in my head with people who disagree with me. We might be having a lot of those mental arguments in our head, maybe with people that we haven't spoken to. The holidays are coming. Transmute that energy before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
If nothing else, but then to get us through.
Love that. All right, number 4 on our list. This is one that I can speak to firsthand recently. Going to concerts or live music or listening to music loudly. So those of you know, I moved November 1st. October 30th, I had tickets to see my favorite band in the world. They're called Set It Off. I've seen them probably 15, 20 times over the last over a decade now. And I was so tired this day. I was exhausted. We were like staying up until midnight every night packing and cleaning. And it was just like, oh, are we going to get it done? Is it ever going to end? Blah, blah, blah. But I decided to go to this concert. And through the opening acts, I was like, oh, I don't want to be here. Like, I wish they were opening so I could just leave, but they were headlining. And, you know, the second opening act came on and I got a little bit into it. I noticed myself like, oh, okay, I was like bopping my head a little bit. And then the third one, I was kind of like bopping my head a little bit more. And then when they came on, it was like, I tell you, all of the stagnant energy in my body left. Like all of the frustration of the week, all of the exhaustion, all of the, you know, anticipation of this new house, all of the nervous energy just like completely went out of my body. And I just lost myself in the music. And it felt like the way I describe it, which is how I described it last time I saw them live, was it feels like a full body exhale. It just feels like on every layer, like every pore of my body. And it's so cool too. Like, I think this band in particular, it feels like magic to me because I would not be on the internet if it weren't for this band. Like, I remember being 16 and watching the singer Cody like grow his YouTube channel and like ask his favorite band if he could perform with them. And then that be the impetus to like starting this band. And now they're like selling out these venues that, you know, big artists play at. And so for me, every time I see them, it like just feels like this magical inspiration that like prompted me to start chasing what I love. But truly, like, I think there's something to just like being around in a crowd of people who are just like screaming their heads off, who are dancing their faces off, who are just like so excited. Like, that energy is just so cleansing and so healing. Even if you're not in the pit. I was not in the pit. I've been to concerts before where I sit the whole time and I still have this experience, or I stand in the back, or I like stand by the merch tables, you know? But I think just like being in that energy where everyone is connected for the same purpose, you know, and everyone's screaming these lyrics with a different intention behind them and different memories behind them. I just think that's really, really powerful. And I think it is a lesson in that interconnectedness, is like remembering we're all in it together. There's this one song that Set It Off has that's my favorite when they perform it live. It's called Why Worry. And whenever they say the chorus, why, you put your hands up and you do like jazz fingers and you scream why. It's like the entire room does it together. And it's like the most cathartic experience ever. It's so fun. So I highly recommend going to some sort of live music concert, or even like, I don't know, if you're a club person, I feel like maybe could have a similar experience. I'm not a club person. You're shocked. I know.
I saw a video of a club in New York that all together did like one collective scream.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Uh-huh. I have a similar experience, but I am going to give yes, obviously go to your favorite bands. I felt this most strongly as a drag along.
Oh.
This was, again, a lot of Missouri lore this episode, but my boyfriend at the time, when I lived in Missouri, really wanted to go see this band. It was like a smaller band, so it was like a smaller venue. I had no idea who they were, had never listened to a song. And I remember like the visceral feeling of cleansing of live music. And because it was a smaller venue, it was one of those things where I could feel the speakers vibrating the floor.
Yeah.
And not knowing a word, it made the music just like sounds.
Yeah.
Like it almost just like singing bowls, just any kind of white noise that I was really able to focus on how it felt in my body. And I could feel the way that like the vibrations stirred something up in me that I was able to let go of. And so supporting some like smaller local artists.
Oh, I love local shows.
At those like shitty small venues.
Love them. Yes.
Even if you have no fucking clue who they are, just go and experience the true feeling of that sound cleansing.
Yeah. I used to be like such a concert person as like a teenager and young 20s. I would go to like, there's one year I think I went to 24 concerts. And like I live in Maine, so most tours don't come up here. I was like driving to Boston and shit. I've seen Set It Off in 7 different states. Like that's their, like all the way out in Seattle. I've seen them. So yeah, I never regret going to a live show. I will say, just as, you know, the mom of this podcast, the self-proclaimed mom of this podcast, please wear hearing protection. That year that I went to 24 shows, I developed tinnitus in my ears and it has never gone away. So you can get on Amazon. They're very, very cheap. They're like earplugs designed to be reusable for concerts. I have a pair of those. I keep them. Here's your ADHD tip, because I know you're going to lose them. You have a bag that you bring to all your concerts. You keep them in that bag. You leave them in that bag. You leave that bag in your closet or wherever you will find it. I only take that bag out for concerts. It has my hearing protection. And then I put it back in my closet. I've had them for 12 years. I have not lost them. They still work. They were $15. You can find them. There's lots of different brands, but get some reusable hearing protection. I promise you, it makes the experience so much better. And you will not have hearing loss at 25 like I did.
Okay, Grandma.
I'm sorry. I can't, I feel like there's a magic in being able to fucking hear.
Yeah, well, what do you need that for? All right. Did we do it?
Yeah, Jinx, you owe me a Christmas Sprite.
I think we did it.
I want to hear from you, dear listener. Tell us your unconventional way that you tap into your magic that makes you feel more connected to your spirituality, to yourself. Drop us a comment over on Instagram. Drop us a comment on Spotify. Hey, maybe leave us a review. That'd be cool. You don't have to, but if you want to.
Yeah, the sillier the better.
Sillier the better. Yes.
The weirder the better. I want to hear, when I say unconventional, I mean it.
Yes. I want to hear what video games y'all are playing.
Yeah, I want to hear your favorite storyline in The Sims. I want to hear the townie that you make all of your Sims marry.
Mr. Pancake, Bob Pancakes.
He's already married. You break up his marriage?
Yeah. And I force feed him waffles.
I feel like because my life is so weird in real life, The Sims is where I play out like my normal life fantasies. And so I do like all of the families. Like in The Sims 2, you know, the sisters, the two sisters, Lilith and what's her face. I make them friends. Mm-hmm. Like I make them like each other.
You heal everyone.
I do. I get that one kid.
What does that say about you?
I can fix him. Girl, I can fix him. That one teenage boy that always has bad grades and his mom gets pregnant and his dad is dead.
Yeah.
I get his grades up. I do.
I can fix him. No, really, I can.
I don't let him join the criminal career track. I make him quit. Anyways.
Well, we've learned a lot about Madison today. I don't know about you all, but...
Midwest princess. Love you.
Okay, on that note, love you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.